World. I'm Vanessa Knopka-Wetzel, and I'm a cartographer. I have been a cartographer for about 15 years. At this point, I kind of stopped doing the math because it's been long enough to stop. I have done print through web mapping. I've built out interactive maps from scratch using JavaScript, whether it's D3 or Mapbox GLJS. I've also leveraged Esri and Mapbox and Carto, and I have built out scripts. I've done everything possible that someone my age can do, from print all the way through the web. I've led teams for building out products or setting up products that are mapping tools. And I also have contributed back to the cartographic industry and the geospatial industry at large by making sure to consistently give talks and workshops about GIS and cartography. And I've taught as an adjunct professor about cartography and geovisualization, and finally have helped to make positive changes to the cartographic industry. I care a lot about cartography and the geospatial community. And it's not just cartography. I also care about the GIS and geospatial community. But cartography is where I'm an expert, and I like giving back because I know that not everyone has the opportunity to learn about cartography and to learn about that in school or at work. And there's not as many people there's not cartographers everywhere. And the past year and a half, there's something I've thought a lot about for giving back and sharing information on. A few things, really. One is that cartography in the web world is, of course, a little different than print. And it's something that has been in the Carto world discussed, and there's guiding principles and so much more. But there's something that I've realized in the past year and a half that isn't talked about as often. And that is that everything that a cartographer knows how to do can be translated to building out websites and understanding UI UX principles and implementing those, and understanding how to make web mapping tools and make them easy to use and having a good user experience, entirely the point of UI UX. This is something that I learned through college up until now, where in a lot of my web work, I wasn't just doing web-based maps, I was building out products and thinking about the interface. And so there's a lot that I learned along the way that I didn't really realize how much I was learning. And in the last year and a half, in seeing and being able to support on a lot of different types of projects, a lot more in an expansive way than maybe I've touched on my whole career, I recognize that I have this expertise that I can share back, and I plan on doing so soon. So you can be on the lookout for that, because I believe in giving back and being able to enable people to do it themselves and to showcase that it is not as hard or as impossible as it seems. It's kind of been my mantra my entire career. I don't think cartography is inaccessible. I think it's just that not everyone gets to learn that in school or at work, because it is something really specific, just like many other specific things in the geospatial industry. And that's why I think it's important. And two, I think that there is a lot relative to those UI UX principles and cartographic principles that relate to that, and building out tools, mapping tools, and so much more that also are an important framework in how AI is built for tooling. I have followed many interesting conversations and been involved in a few on LinkedIn and in other spaces, seeing how people are surfacing that there needs to be a lot more critical thinking and prompts for AI, for example, and the natural language prompts, in order to ensure that the correct question is asked to give you the output that you need. I think that a lot of the discourse around that in particular, I have found to really just parallel to what cartographers automatically think like. And so it's yet another space that I'm seeing where cartographers have a lot of knowledge that not everyone knows about that is worth sharing out, especially web cartographers, and then especially cartographers that have worked on mapping tools. So be on the lookout for that, more there soon. Then additionally, I've seen relative to that framework, a lot of conversations on LinkedIn and elsewhere saying that GIS is dead and GIS analysts are dead, like conceptually, and that there needs to be a rethink on where to go from here. And I categorically disagree with both those statements. A lot of what I've read has been quite interesting. And for me as a cartographer, it feels pretty similar to when many years ago Flash died because Apple stopped supporting it. And perhaps it was not felt as much to the full geospatial world, but cartographers at the time felt it deeply because we were all using Flash and ActionScript to build out interactive and animated maps. And all of us had to pretty rapidly relearn what to do in JavaScript and in HTML in order to support building these interactive maps that were all the rage and were really important alongside the technological shifts at the time. Where there was a lot more data, viz, and interactions starting to happen. And today, those are all things that we now see as commonplace and expected on the web, whether it's maps or other data visualizations. It's all just part of the toolbox. And so for me, I certainly have a lot of personal opinions about AI, and I can make another video about that in the future. And I'm sure those who know me personally might want to know my opinion, perhaps, or have already talked to me about it. But at the end of the day, AI is here to stay, and it is important to determine how to use it best. And that's what we're all talking about. And I think that the critical piece that I do want to share out directly relates to what I said, UI, UX, cartographic knowledge, and how it parallels to that, and how that thinking framework from building out products, thinking about the audience, whether a cartographer's building out a print map or building things for the web for a base map or building out an application, we all have been trained to already think about the things that I've seen so many people call out as being important principles and needing to grow into understanding how to build the best prompt or consider the best things. And there's certainly a lot of other things that are required for these natural language prompts, from ensuring that your metadata is correct and detailed enough for the prompt to exist, among other things. But at the end of the day, a lot of these natural language prompts, these agentic interfaces, very much parallel in terms of the production and the considerations and the requirements to what cartographers think about regularly. So I want to start sharing out information about that too. And much of it's centered on cartography, but cartography is quite expansive. Cartography is not just choosing colors or choosing effects, although it certainly is nice to choose those, both for the aesthetic reason and also for many reasons to cause information to rise to the foreground or to emphasize information, to help with legibility and so many more things. But cartography has kept up with the times from going back beyond the web. My thesis was on defining styles in the history of cartography. And everything is very dependent on technological shifts. And there's certainly influence from everything else that was going on across all of time. But the more technology that we got over time, the more cartography and GIS itself were very dependent on technology. And that's what we're seeing today. And so cartographers are really well acquainted with having to think about shifting and changing and growing. And I think this is the case for all of geospatial. People will joke around about needing to relearn or learn new things or explore things, but cartographers already have been thinking about, exactly what we're talking about. And there's a lot of research already happening. There's already, of course, a lot of AI in products and in coding languages and so much more. And I think that there is space for me to share information specific to that, but I definitely want to share out the frameworks that are relative to cartography and AI, cartography and UI UX, cartography and more things, just general tidbits and tricks that I can share out. For those who already follow me, not assuming that anyone's going to follow me because of this video, but I have shared some information about hashtag Creative Carto getting stood up again. And I want to stand it up again so that that community online and sometimes in person, if you live in DC, can start meeting to do what we used to do, which is make time to learn and grow. And I think these conversations are really well suited to be shared alongside Creative Carto. And again, I was already planning on launching Creative Carto and relaunching it with some educational and informational videos where people get to learn and maybe get to do some of that when they're participating in Creative Carto. It's a hashtag you can join on LinkedIn. I don't know yet when the official meeting time will be, but if you're interested, you can be on the lookout for that. And specifically, and finally, finally, I'll share far more than just this, but these are the frameworks and things that I plan on sharing out once things start going. I will be sharing out and continue to share out accessibility information in cartography and mapping, because I continue to think this is very critical in growing this, and it feels especially prudent and important alongside technological shifts and AI, because the more technology shifts, the more we need to continue to think about accessibility. So I will continue to share information that I have learned. I will bring in people that are experts in different ways in mapping, and they will be interviewed, and there'll be some fun little cozy fireside chats. But that's about it. If you're still watching 11 minutes in, I'm excited to share out all of these thoughts that I've had percolating in my brain the past year and a half back to you. And you can expect more than just these things, but this is what you can expect first. I certainly will also share my expertise on working with nonprofits and NGOs and for good spaces and how I have seen mapping in all its forms take place. I think there's so much to share that can be helpful for so many people. I will figure out how to design things visually as well, where it's obvious in the frame if something relates to particular topics. But yeah, be on the lookout. I was going to wait to publish this for when I had everything figured out, but I don't want perfectionism to be the enemy of the good. And I think just starting with this will be a good way of reminding myself I don't need to have every single idea written down yet or fully planned out. I can just start and move along the way, and also say over time what the official plans are for Creative Carto and anything else that comes up in terms of specific time and dates. With that, I'll leave you and remind again, I'm Vanessa Knopka-Wetzel. I'm a cartographer. I have worked across so many different types of products and modalities, I suppose, and I like giving back to the geospatial community, and I'm excited to share information with you. Bye.